What's up, y'all? You're listening to the My Nation podcast. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Robert Cessna. Cease, we're in the thick of diamond sports, and you couldn't be in maybe more opposite places if you're A&M baseball and you're A&M softball. At one hand, big celebration at Davis Diamond Sunday night when A&M gets the number one overall seed. And then on the other end, you've got A&M baseball that really finds itself stuck between a rock and a hard place after being swept at home by a pretty bad Missouri team. And now they gotta win games, and there's a big sense of urgency there.
Yeah, a couple things is there probably was celebration at Davis Diamond, but it was more at Mr. Davis's house.
Well, that's true.
Whatever. And that's funny when I saw the highlights because we've been over there a couple times. But you're right about the opposite spectrum, and I know I don't know what church you go to, but I go to First Baptist, so I always. Sunday is always a great day, not only to go to church, but also you hear from the fans. And the deal is you talk about, people want to talk about baseball and softball, and that surely was the case on Sunday, and a lot of them had been to the baseball game. And, of course, I couldn't go to the baseball game, so I followed them. I didn't pay attention to Friday's game because I was busy, I think, covering softball via watching on TV. The next 2 days, I watched both ball games, and I'll be like the parishioners at my church goes, that was just unreal. As you watched, I told them as well, to me it was almost surreal. It was like watching a bad movie in the fact, as I kept watching Saturday and Sunday, it's going to change, but it never changed.
It never changed. You know, you look at the first 3 innings of Friday's game, A&M gets ahead 6-1. They hit 4 home runs right out the gate. The problem is that north wind was blowing in pretty much the whole weekend, and Mike Early put it plain and simple. They got out of their approach at the plate. You know, they're swinging for the fences. They're not looking at good pitches. They're swinging at balls. They're taking strikes, and it was just a recipe for failure at the plate. And they just were not able to shake out of it. It was kind of mesmerizing in a way, perplexing in a lot of ways, right? That leaves you in a confounded state when you leave the ballpark. And I'm going to write about that in my column that's going to be in Thursday's paper. It's just, it was mystifying, right? We talked last week on the podcast of, man, vibes are high around the program. You know, you could see them maybe losing a game. Baseball's baseball. We knew Missouri had been giving people a hard time.
Could lose a game.
I don't think any of us could have envisioned them getting swept last weekend.
Well, once again, you were there and I wasn't. I like to tell people, baseball's the only sport I played. And I played it competitively in high school and even some semi-pro. A couple years I went to college just playing with teams. Baseball was my sport. I played the other sports recreationally, but I feel like I know baseball. And to me, I laughed when I watched all the Sunday game because I was off and sitting there at the couch. And I felt like it was one of those, Missouri was one of those teams like we showed up and we drew positions and batting orders out of a hat. Maybe some of the guys, not me, had a keg on the outside, and they just were having a good time. And to me, you've got to play the diamond sports loose. If there's one sport where you get tight, and I said, man, Missouri was as loose as a goose. They come in here, and what happened was they won that first game, and they go, wow, we won a game.
They had nothing to lose.
And then all of a sudden you saw A&M, and I know, like I said, I wasn't there in person, and then that rubs off on the fans because then you're saying, like, oh, my gosh. It doesn't matter if there was 5,000 there. There's 5,000 people there with their gut wrenched.
Well, and we talked with Mike Early and Wyatt Hensler earlier today before they headed out to Georgia. And so that was my question for them was, okay, you've got to play with a sense of urgency now, right? They've got to win games. But how do you play that without being so uptight it is a detriment, right? Because the fact of the matter is baseball teams play best when they're loose. We all know that. That is probably I don't know if anybody's done a scientific study on this, but a non-scientific study shows that it's truth, right? And so that's the challenge, though, of your back's against the wall. You've got to win. You're going to play a team that is a consensus top 10 team. They're ranked number 1 in the RPI, which is also a good thing for your resume if you can get some wins. Say you win the series, okay, 12-18, not pretty, but you're probably jumping at least 10, maybe 15 spots in the
20,
RPI.
maybe 20.
Yeah, I mean, they could easily get back into the top 40. They're 59.
Yeah.
They're 59th right now, which is not a good mark. It's not a good mark. They were at 35 going into last weekend.
You do the math.
You do the math. So a good quote from Wyatt Hensler though was he was pretty honest. Last weekend was embarrassing, but it's up to A&M to not let that crumble the rest of their season, because even though the odds might be slim, they've still got a chance to turn this around. They've got opportunities to win games that could maybe still find a back door into the NCAA tournament, which is that's just the goal right now, is get into the tournament and see what you can do from there.
And here's the deal, Alex. It's like the fans, and I think the media, this is when we're blessed. We're a little closer when we see teams go down the drain, so to speak, or going down the drain, teams going in the upswing. We see how that happens. We see how that affects the whole team. So you're seeing that in baseball. You don't like to see that, but that's the way life is right now. And the flip side of that is you jumped on the tennis bandwagon. And the women's tennis, this is now years that they've been on the upswing. And they won a national championship last year. And you think, like, sometimes it's like, hey, A&M won a national championship, in tennis. I mean, and now they get a chance, really in their backyard, less than 90 miles away, they can win another national championship.
Some are calling it Mitchell North.
Well, I'm just saying is what a role for the women's tennis team.
Yeah, and we'll get to them in a minute because they've got a big match Thursday. I'll be there up in Waco, but yeah, things are looking a little bleak for the baseball team, but here's the fact of the matter. They have been down on the mat, just about kicked as bad as you can be, and they've gotten back up and won some big games. Will they do it again? We're about to find out this weekend. But for me, it's hard to rule out anything considering they've been in these bad situations before, and they've found ways to win games that nobody expected them to win. The key is, can they do it one more time to save their season?
Yeah, the thing I look at on the outside looking in, I don't think Georgia's playing for a lot. I mean, I think they've got a top 10. They've got a top 8 almost locked up. So they're playing at home. They're playing it loose. It's their last regular season series. So I think A&M's got a tough assignment because I think Georgia's going to play a little loose. And they've got a lot of talent. They like to hit the long ball.
Well, and that park plays small.
And
they hit the cover off that ball. I mean, you go and look at their splits between home and away, and it's crazy. It's nuts. But which, for a team like A&M that likes to get offense going via the long ball, maybe that's the perfect place to play. It helped when they played Tennessee. Tennessee's known as a place that you can hit balls out left and right, and that's exactly what A&M did in those second and third games to take the series from them.
Well, and say what you will about baseball, if you score first sometimes when you're the visiting team, and then we seen Missouri do that.
They did that Saturday, Sunday, and that was a big deal. Yeah, that was a big deal.
That's a big deal. So suddenly, if Jake Slavolette would hit a leadoff homer at one of the games, and if somebody else hits a homer, if you get up 3-0, put a crooked number in the first inning, then you put some pressure on the other team.
Well, and to your point, that's exactly what A&M did at Arkansas in that third game. Jace hits a solo home run in the third game, and Mike says, hey, that was a big deal. That was the day they had to play the doubleheader. They had just come off a loss. They'd kind of gotten roughed up. I think it was 11-5. And so Jace kind of setting a tone there, that really helps a team settle in, and that was a huge win for A&M.
And the bottom line always is, we do know, like I said, I played baseball. If your starting pitcher comes and he's lights out, and he come out and give you 7 innings, let's say, and the other team only scores 1 run, you got a great chance of winning. A&M has 3 pitchers that's capable of doing that. Prager's been on this roller coaster again. He had like 3 or 4 good weeks, and then last week 3 runs against a bad team in 6 innings ain't going to make it. So they need him to go down and definitely hold Georgia to 3 or less in 6 innings and see where you're at. But once again, they have the pitchers that could go out and stop the other team.
Well, let's move to softball because here's the reality. A&M is number 1 in the NCAA tournament for the first time in program history. It's been a build to this point. Credit to Tricia Ford and her staff. They have worked very hard to get this to where it is. Cease, my question is, can A&M win a national championship over the next 3 weeks?
Well, they can because I've covered softball for a long time. What I like about softball is the RPI. The bracket usually reflects the RPI, except for a couple instances. I saw one year where A&M was like 16th on the RPI, the first one, and all year long they stayed at 16. And lo and behold, when the bracket came out, they were 16. And you go like, wow. And I mean, seriously, it was like the whole year A&M never budged off 16. And what the deal is, I wanted to see A&M play Oklahoma. I was jealous that I wouldn't have been there if it happened, but they don't back off those games. What you saw they did to Texas, and that was going to be, to me, winner take all would be number one. And of course they didn't play, and of course A&M had the resume to be number one. But when you look at where A&M is, last year they were number 16. 3 cupcakes come in here, and Texas State wasn't bad. Don't get me wrong. And A&M went by without any problem to super regionals and then almost beat number one. Well, this year they've got an easier first rounds even. The 3 teams coming in, A&M should have no problems with them. Yeah, once again, if suddenly somebody comes in throwing 40-mile-per-hour saucers that A&M can't hit, yeah, maybe they have a bad 3-0 game they win or something. But it's made for A&M to take care of business this weekend. Then you play a number 16 seat, and should Oregon be seated a little bit higher? That's the one you question, because they went into the weekend like number 4, number 5 in most of the polls, pretty decent RPI, but then they lost the first game to Michigan, and the Big Ten's not a power conference, even though they added UCLA, and they added Oregon, still not quite.
And UW.
What's that?
In Washington,
and
UW.
Washington. Washington's not great this year, but
they've had some good teams.
Correct. Oh yeah, national champion. But my point being is, team come from Oregon coming down here possibly in a super regional in 100-degree temperatures. But my point being,
saw how that shook out in baseball last year.
Yeah, A&M's got a great path. And as I was talking to somebody yesterday, I said, also I always look ahead, because when you get to the World Series, everybody is kind of, glad they get there. I don't care who you are. You want to get there. People get there will breathe a big sigh of relief. They'll all say they want to do more, but then once again, A&M has the bracket to do it by being number one. If they get there, they're going to play the 8 seed, the 9 seed, or someone to upset them.
What seed is Texas?
Texas is.
Are they 7?
They're probably. Florida was, Oklahoma's 2, Florida was 3, Texas might be 5 or something like that.
You keep talking
while I rumble. I think they're like 5, but my point being is 5 or 6. They would get a first round game at the College World Series that A&M should win. So that's because, and when you get to the College World Series, things do get a little bit different at times, because most people have one great stud pitcher. Well, you got a pitcher the first day, so then you come back. A lot of times, how good is your second pitcher at the College World Series, or how good is your third pitcher at the College World Series? So, yeah.
So A&M's 1, Oklahoma's 2, Florida's 3.
Mm-hmm. I knew that.
Arkansas's 4, Florida State's 5. So if chalk holds, A&M would face the 8 seed, which is South Carolina.
I think UCLA is number 9.
Yes, UCLA is number 9. Texas is number 6. So
Texas is opposite the bracket.
My point being is, A&M would not have Oklahoma, Texas, or Florida on their side of the bracket in Oklahoma City, but they would have Arkansas
or Florida State. Now they beat Florida State twice, and sometimes you don't want to play a good team the third time. But once again, those are all problems Tricia Ford would take right now if you're saying, like, who are you going to play in the second game up in Oklahoma City? But my point, what we started is, they have taken care of business. They've got a great path, not only to Oklahoma City, but to go up there and do damage. If you remember right and I've been up to Oklahoma City a few times, such a build-up. You go up there in 2017, they go bang, bang. It's like
it was quick.
It's like you're barely there, and you go, "Wow, they're gone." In one of those games, they got no hit by.
They lost to Washington and UCLA
by Florida's good pitcher. Maybe it was.
Was it you?
I think it was Florida's good pitcher.
It was Florida. It was
their stud pitcher.
Was it Barnhill?
Yeah, Barnhill. No hit. Then you turn around and use the LC, and you're gone. It's a great place.
Neither game was competitive.
It's a great place to go. But if you go up there and go bang, bang, it's like.
Well, and it's crazy how quick they play that tournament.
Exactly.
It's like, it's just a week.
Well, you also got to remember, in softball, games usually don't last more than 2 hours. You get good pictures. You're going to get an hour and 35-minute game. Not like a college baseball game that you go up there, and it might be 3.5 hours.
Well, Omaha just.
At Omaha.
I mean, it felt like they were up there forever last year.
Yeah.
When they were in
So you go up there, if you lose in 90 minutes, then you go, okay, we got to come back tomorrow in a loser's bracket game. You come back, you get run, rolled, or lose. Hey, here's your parting gift. But A&M has a team built that I think, and boy, you don't want to hear Cease's comments, I think they'll be around a while up at Oklahoma City. I was concerned, or whatever word you want to use, when they went to number 1 and went to Missouri and played just 3 crappy games. Oh, and then they come home. And
something about Missouri in the Diamond Sports.
And then Arkansas.
But hey, the good news for the baseball team, the softball team recovered. I don't know, man.
And then Arkansas come home and beat them 2 out of 3. I mean, it wasn't just problems at Missouri. They come home and Arkansas took them to the woodshed. Matter of fact, if Arkansas would have finished strong, they might have been number 1 in the nation, because then they went home and they won 2 games against LSU. If they'd have swept that and beat Oklahoma, they were up on Oklahoma. So Arkansas had a path to number 1 in the country after they beat A&M.
OU was lucky to get past Arkansas.
Yes, they were 6-1. But my point being is A&M bounced back. And then they bounced back in a big way. They go into the tournament off 3 run rules. After that Arkansas game, even they won that 3rd game, I go, okay, they got a great pitched game out of Emily Kennedy. Can they build on that? When they went to Tennessee, there's a lot of dead bodies over Tennessee. They were 3-12. That one time, they won 2 with Tori Vidalis and that group to go to the College World Series for the last time.
That was the last time they went.
Last time, but we knew they went over there and took care of business and didn't do anything up in Oklahoma City. But my point being is they went over there and they beat Tennessee, and Tennessee was pretty good. They were number 1 by some of the polls. A&M went over there and beat them twice. Very convincing series, and they built on that. So A&M goes into the tournament on a big high, and they're playing at Davis Diamond.
Well, sticking on Penberthy Drive across the street, the women's tennis team isn't there anymore because they're in Waco. They're competing. Waco. Up with our sister paper, the Waco Tribune Herald. But anyway, look, A&M, they're trying to repeat, and that's a hard thing to accomplish. But
sure.
A&M has got the depth, and they've got the experience probably to make it happen. And if chalk holds, we might be seeing another A&M Georgia women's tennis match for the national championship. The thing that's been interesting to me is A&M shook up its doubles before the start of the postseason, and it's paid off pretty well. That they've only dropped 1 double set so far this postseason. They're playing Tennessee on Thursday. A&M beat Tennessee 4-1, but Tennessee took that doubles point in Knoxville. It's going to be interesting to see how A&M, gets it going, and they've said Tennessee's a pretty gritty team, and so that's gonna be something to look out for as they approach that game. But the fact of the matter is, A&M plays terrific singles, and they're very deep down that lineup, all the way down to court number 6 with freshman Lexington Reed. And so A&M's going to be a hard team to beat this next week in Waco.
They're top heavy and bottom heavy. So, once again, that means they, like the A&M softball lineup, they're good from top to bottom. And when you look, when they got Stayana at the top, they got Corinne. I mean, those two don't lose a lot. Then you go right down the middle, Perez. And when you look, if you've studied A&M tennis, and I know a lot of different players have clinched matches. So in other words, all the eyes have been on literally all 6 of them at some point. And that's what you want when you go in there, because some teams will be very dominant. Oh man, their top 2 will be really good. Or actually some teams, their top are not that great, but then 4, 5, and 6 are so strong that they win that. I mean, believe it or not, and coaches know what they have and what their strength is. Mark's strength is, it's pretty funny, they're good from top to bottom, and they do struggle with doubles at times. He's tinkered like the last few years all the time with doubles, and it's not that he doesn't have great talent. he does have great talent. So the key is putting them together because doubles is definitely different. If you go out and watch tennis, oh my gosh, doubles goes by so quick. It's talking about baseball and softball, and you better have the right two together, or you blink, it'll be 6-1. The doubles is over. No ad, whatever, very quick. So it's hard to get two people that really complement their games. And then if you run into a team, like some teams are very strong in doubles. If you talk to Weaver, certain teams, they base their whole deal is they're going to win the first point.
Georgia's got a really good, strong
really
doubles.
good doubles. And that's why they got a number one singles that either she's number one in the country like Vladimir or Vladimir or whatever. She's not from Curtin. Let's put it that way. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, so they rely on doubles and her giving a 2-0 lead. And then suddenly they only need 2 more points. And once again, how do you build your team? But Weaver, I remember covering him in college. He's quite a character that I think because when he took the job, went from men to women's, he said he's here to win a national championship. And, you think coaches that say that, you're trying to make your grave, And
yeah, everybody likes to say
everybody
that,
likes
right?
to say that, but don't say it out loud a lot of times because then people are going to hold you to it. But, hey, he's got the ring, he's got the trophy, so he can smile, and now he's working on number 2.
Yeah. A&M is going to be a very hard team to beat. It's a place that they're familiar with. They've played a lot of matches at Waco. That goes a long way. It's going to be a hot week too, and you got to think that for a team like A&M that has played in these elements, that favors them when they have to play a team that maybe hasn't.
Well, I was going to say yes, but unfortunately, Athens, Georgia gets very, very hot.
Ooh,
so
yeah, it does get steamy.
If you haven't ever been tennis, you might want to go up to Waco on Sunday if they do meet. That could literally be a 4 or 5 hour match because they're going to take breaks.
It was about a 4-hour match when they played at Mitchell.
They're going to take water breaks. They're going to be very, very cautious. But those two teams are so good. If they meet, oh my gosh, that's going to be And Alex will be lose about 10 pounds if he's there at that game.
Hey, that would be an okay thing, as long as it's in a healthy way, right?
Waco has enough good eateries that you'll make it up as well, so you'll gain the 10 pounds back.
Hey, a fun thing about the tennis team that we came to learn this past week is, everybody's got their way of getting team camaraderie and team chemistry. Yeah, one fun way that the women's tennis team has done that this year is when they go on road trips, the girls like to go find a local coffee shop and just hang out and have a good time. And
why does that not surprise you?
Why does that not surprise you? But they've already got their list. And, oh, man,
they got coffee in Waco? I
didn't know. Chip and Joe have done a lot to that town, Cease.
I was going to say, there's not a gift shop out the Branch Davidian place or whatever probably to go get coffee. That'd be bad. But
No, I think they're probably going to stick by Magnolia.
Yeah, that's a good point. The house people. You're right. They're everywhere. They'll probably be at the tennis.
Hey, maybe I'll go by the Dr. Pepper Museum. I've never been there.
Oh, really?
Have you been to the Dr. Pepper Museum?
I don't like Dr. Pepper actually.
Really? See, okay, I react like that, but the fact of the matter is, I'm Team Coke over Dr. Pepper. That's probably the least Texan thing about me, is that I'm not a big Dr. Pepper fan.
Hey, I always like going to Waco. Like I said, good eateries. I make jokes about Branch Davidian because I'm Cease doing whatever, but it's always nice. You say what you will. It's Central Texas. They're very good in all sports. You consider they won national championships in men's basketball and women's basketball. They're also very good in, tumbling. They actually have tumbling.
Hey, just make sure you go the speed limit while you're driving through Calvert and Riesel. That's the only thing I got to say.
Where's your favorite eatery in Waco?
In Waco? I haven't spent a ton of time eating in Waco.
George's. What about George's?
I've not been to George's.
Okay.
We've had a couple good meals at the Hype Miller Steakhouse.
That's on my top list.
That is about as good a bang a buck for a steakhouse as you're going to find. And there is a barbecue place. It's called Hellberg Barbecue. I'm hoping to get over there. They've got some good stuff. They have brisket mac and cheese balls.
Wow.
That sounds pretty good. And trying to Shorty's Pizza. Can't miss Shorty's Pizza.
It used to be a place all the media went back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, on the Circle, and I forget what it was called. I hate to say that. We used to go there, the media, all the time, along with George's. Those were the two institutions. Of course, then they closed it down, and somebody else bought it. It wasn't quite the same. So I
Is
probably
it actually a circle?
well, where the circle is in Waco, that's where the restaurant was on the circle, and it went to its resting place probably about 10, 15 years ago. Unfortunately, time flies by.
Well, the A&M baseball team's hoping that their season doesn't go to a resting place this weekend. A&M softball and tennis is hoping they can bring home. Well, tennis is hoping they can bring home a championship. Softball's hoping they can extend that hope.
Move closer to bringing home hardware.
If softball's going where they want, they'll be driving through Waco here in about 2 weeks, and you will too on your way to cover them.
And I'll be eating at High Millers. You're right. Good point.
There you go. Hey, that's all the time we got this week on the My Aggie Nation podcast. Be sure to follow all of our coverage on theeagle.com. We'll see you next week. Thanks, y'all.